Now, as to who exactly raised the question, hindi ko na matatandaan yan. No? But really, we said to ourselves, parang opinion po lang ito. No? In fact, the first one who used the term was our, you might say, number one sargento, calling that Nelin Santa Romana, brother of Chito Santa Romana. I had the good fortune of having Nelin. He was a graduate student in the UP School of Economics. And we said, well, we asked them if they're poor or not. He said, like an opinion poll. Yes, opinion poll, right? But we've tried very hard to minimize any kind of prompting. This is what we call minimal prompting, almost zero prompting. It involves actually reading. We don't even say what's on the card. We show a card. We show a card to respondents. Now, interviewers are trained very carefully not to veer off from this script. Huh? Sabihin mo lang, saan po ninyo ilalagay ang pamilya ninyo sa card na ito? Pakituro. Pakituro. Hindi babasahin. Pati yung words, mahirap at hindi mahirap, hindi yan binabasa. Hindi sinasabi na may guhit. Basta pakita lang. So, this is purely visual. Ang problema, hindi ito magagawa sa telepono. Kailangan face-to-face. So, during the pandemic, for 3 quarters, we did not do it. We discontinued it muna. Right? So, the important things are the words. Huh? Of course, ang dami-daming words dyan. Marigrigat, pobre, imol, pobre, miskinan, kareregen, pobre, etc. At on the other side are negative, strictly negative, not opposite. Negative. Hindi, dili, di kanan, etc. All right? So that's all. That's all. If there is a question, ano ibig sabihin nito? The trained interviewer will say, nasa inyo po kung anong nakikita ninyo dyan, kung ano ang maintindihan ninyo dyan. Is it all right if I speak Filipino? Okay. No, I just, I don't want not to be understood. Right? So, ayun. Walang prompting dyan kung saan ka dapat. Furthermore, we use 2 cards. Yung isang card ay binabaliktad lamang at yung mahirap nasa itaas at yung hindi nasa baba. Para alternating yan. Okay? From the very beginning, the very, very first trial, we found people pointing to the line. And so we decided, lagyan natin ng record din yan. Ito, mga line. From the very start. And what do you know, over time, ang dami-dami talagang tumuturo sa guhit. Right? So, as I would say there, people see, quote unquote, they recognize there is a border. Even if there is no label, there is no description, it doesn't even say that there's a label there. Tinuturuan nila. It's in the mind, no, of the people. It turns out that it's a very wide border. You will see it in the data. It should really be acknowledged sa ganung kalaki. At sa ganung kadami ang naglalagay na sila ay nasa gitna. Okay? There are fluctuations of all of these things. Even over only 3 months, because we're doing this quarterly, and from one quarter to another, you have oftentimes fluctuations of more than 3%, and that's the margin of error already in the size of the survey. Right? Now, we also followed it up with another question about the threshold. That's a follow-up question. If they are poor, the question is, kung ganoon, magkano bang kailangan ninyo panggasto sa bahay sa isang buwan para hindi na sabihin ganun kayo? Not the threshold. Then later, I don't know if it was a year or two later, we added the gap, which was another question. Magkano kulang ninyo doon sa sinabi nyo kailangan ninyo? All right? So we didn't think of everything in the beginning, but little by little we added those things, right? And those are very realistic. Huh? You will see, okay? All right. It's the first decade from 1983 to 1990. 1983, DAP, well, this institutional history na lang kung paano ito nag-umpisa. In fact, the data only, the records only are the 55% who pointed to the mahirap, and the other portions are somewhere we don't know up to now. Right? The next one in 1985 was done by the Bishop's Businessmen's Conference for Human Development. BBC was inserted into a BBC survey. And that's the first time we have all the answers of not poor, borderline, and poor. Right? Now, that 74% is the all-time high. It's very clear why that happened. It's because in 1984, and by the way, this 83 was mid-year before Ninoy got back and was assassinated. In 1984, there was 50% inflation, hyper. We should use the term hyper. And in 85, there was 25%. That's still hyper inflation. So it's no wonder that by 1985, you had super number of people saying mahirap sila. Right? And then you see the other numbers there, the reds, in my line of 60. Well, it fizzled down a little bit in 1987. 1987 was inflation disappeared for, in 87. That was a big relief. And I say inflation specific because by now we have looked at correlates, and the strongest correlate is really inflation. And the weak correlate is the growth in the gross domestic product. All right, which is very important to get us high. That should not be the indicator of economic well-being anymore. And kayo na nasa economics department, unang-una kayo sa pagturo. Tapos na dapat ang gamit ninyo doon sa GDP na yon as an indicator of well-being. Right? Okay. So, this is just to show you how much data there are. All right? Look at the poor, look at the borderline, look at the not poor. Actually, ang pinakamaliit ay yung mga not poor. They could say confidently, hindi kami mahirap. It's so small. That's in fact the big story. Our poverty is massive. It was more massive then. It's not as massive now. Now it's only 47%. Only. That's as of December 2023. Now, I say that to emphasize that we're doing it promptly and continuously without stopping. This is not history of the past. This is engaged measuring of what's happening to the people quarter by quarter, purposely to match the national income accounts and to present an alternative to everybody as to how you can evaluate the economic success or failure of what's going on. You've got to have it equally prompt. That's the whole idea. And that's lessons learned from the practice of measuring well-being. The old social indicators movement, which started 50 years ago, 1974. Or is that 60 now? 50. 50. It's the golden anniversary, you might say, no? 50. Yeah. 1991 to 2000. This is what's happened. In 1992, we began doing it quarterly. That's purely a matter of, you know, economic feasibility. We started to have enough money so that we could do it quarterly. Right? And you see, actually, even at this point, you can see that there is, we must admit, a downward trend in poverty over time. A little bit of a downward trend. It's not as though it's flat. Okay. Let's go to the next slide, Maha. Right. Okay. In the 2000s, I put up there, now the poverty ranged from 43 to 66%. It was starting to go into the 40s. It was starting to go into the 40s. The border group was from 15 to 35. The not poor was, well, it's blocked over there, whatever that is. Okay. It's not correct to say borderline poor because they're on the borderline. You may as well say borderline not poor also. You see? Huh? Ang border ay border. Ang nasa gitna ng dalawa. Huwag mong ididikit yung ilalim. Okay. And then after 2010, the next slide. All right. Well, here we got the peak not poor in 2014, quarter four. It was 30%. And we got the record low poor in 2019, quarter one, before the pandemic, of 38%. That's the only time it went in the 30s. Once and only once, so far. Right? And there's the question mark there, is the interruption of our F2F, or face-to-face surveys. That's the history up to December 2023, which result was released last week. And by the time I give this again in a month, in 3 weeks, 3 months from now, maybe somewhere else, we will be able to add the next point. This is a living data series. This is a competitor. And that's the whole idea. A competitor of the national income accounts, because the national income accounts fail to reveal the well-being of the Filipino people. Right? For social reasons, political reasons. Mahirap, nakakahiya, and all of that sort of thing. Right? I'll let the political science sociologists be the ones to do that. But panggulo sa buhay nila na gumawa ng poverty estimates. Diba? I also have a hard time mentioning it too much because my friends in NEDA will get affected. You know, every time we would say that, right? And they are responding naman. I'm very pleased that RC Balisacan improved the triennial monitoring of poverty to biennial. Malaking bagay na yan. Pero bungi-bungi pa yan. I think you should go to annual immediately. It's not as though they don't have the money. If they can do monthly labor force surveys, they can do monthly as well. Okay. Okay, so what's the trend? Say it again. Now, this is just the SRP. Well, that's abbreviation na lang, SRP, self-rated poverty. from the bottom up. It's very rugged. It is slightly downward, to be sure, but it's rugged. Okay. Next one. All right. Look at this. In all these years, we have now 141 point-to-point changes in poverty. I mean, just successive readings, point to point. And most of them are quarterly because we started our quarterly in 1992. Okay, P to P. This is just a summary of how many of those changes were insignificant, how many were down, and how many were up. And by insignificant, I mean not more than 3%. Some were up less, some were down less. So that's both insignificant. That's in the middle. 37% insignificant changes from one quarter to another. After that's only one quarter. But look, there are 30% going up by more than 3% in only 3 months. And there are 33% going down. Right? Now, because the down outweighs the up, that's why you have the overall is slightly down. There are more downs than ups. You have to admit that, but not much more downs than ups. Okay? I've divided them into large, medium, and small. In fact, no? Just to show you how many times you had a change of 9%, up to 9%, no, more than 9, large, and then the medium 6 to 9, and then the small 3 to 6. Those are very, very meaningful changes. It's a national survey. It's golden rule type, what do you call that? 1200 size. That's good enough. That's what all the countries do, 1,000. We do 1,200 because we like to have 400, not 400, 300 in 4 areas. 300 in NCR, 300 in the rest of Luzon, 300 in Visayas, and 300 in Mindanao. We'd increase it if we had more money. But that's just a matter of money. And sometimes we are able to divide Luzon into 2. North of NCR and south of NCR. But not regularly. Once in a while. It depends on the circumstances. Right. Go to the next one, please. This is another question which we are doing now every quarter, but I have only put in here the last one, which is from December 2023. It's called the transition from. It's a question which says, or we ask the household head, ganong katagal na kayo ganon, no, na mahirap o hindi mahirap. So we just find out in years. No? We ask it of everybody, no, including those who are not poor. Kung ganong katagal sila ganoon na not poor. And that's how we have gotten these groups. This is just the latest group, but they're always, this is a typical one. Look at the 47% poor, and you have 33 always poor who just say, ganito naman, I mean, lagi, no. So, we just break it up into yung newly 1 to 4 years ago, they were the other way, or 5 years or more ago, or never changed like that. It's just to show you that there is transition. It's not fixed forever, right? It's very realistic, actually. The only trick is you can't stop asking this question. No? It becomes, it's true because you know what happens when you do it again. Just look again and be confident. beware of those who say ganito ito, pero that last reading was 3 years ago. E paano ngayon? May plano ba silang ulitin? One, a very, very important aspect of getting the data is that you're not just getting it once. You don't stop getting it. You keep on. You have a plan. You don't put all of your eggs in one survey because you've got to be ready for the next one. No? At a decent time. Hindi naman napakabilis because mauubusan ka. Right? Practical. Be practical. Okay. Next one, please. So here it is against the PSA, which is an income poverty. PSA, Philippine Statistical Authority, income poverty, because they use a certain income as the, well, they compare the income to a line. Actually, the line is based on consumption of, a certain amount of pesos for consumption. And in fact, that's one of their, I'd say, obvious flaws. Since they know consumption, why don't they use consumption and not the income? They have the expenditure. In fact, Toots Albert, when he was the statistician, made that criticism himself. Why couldn't he change it? Kasi ang lakas ng tradition not to change it. Ganun na. Once you change that from income to consumption, siyempre lalaki ang poverty amount. Right? So there's a very big difference between what we've got and what they've got. And there are even two lines here I show you. PSI income poverty and so-called refined and unrefined. They refined it in 2011. The decision was made in 2011 to lower the poverty line. Even though they said, no, we are not lowering it, but they lowered it because the poverty went down. So obviously it got lowered. No? And then they applied it to the data of 2009 and then backwards to a few more points. So here, I use this a nice pointer. Huh? Look, this is the first one that they got, this one. No? And then they made it back to that one, and then all the way to this one, because they needed something at the beginning to use for their Millennium Development Goals plan. No? Because you got to have a beginning, you got to have an end. But they admitted they have no more funds in order to do the extrapolation in between. So that's why it was like that. Right? Over here, there was a little bit of extra work there. And I think that's because R.C. Balisacan was NEDA for a while at that point, and he used the halves. You know, the FIES is done in halves, first half and second half. But most of the time, they don't use the halves. They add it up so that instead of getting two observations, first half and second half, you only have one observation for the entire year. And then in between, you have bungi-bungi, of course. Okay. Sana, every year, and you do it in halves also, then you will have every 6 months. Hindi maganda? That will be a big improvement, right? Okay. But if they say, bakit napakaiba? Kasi, the system. It's the system. It's not what the people say. They're telling you how much their income is. They're telling you how much their consumption. You can probably take it. But it's not being compared with something realistic. And right now, this is one of the things I would like to do, is we have to start estimating the cost of earning. Not just the cost of living, the cost of earning regularly. Ano pa yung pamasahe? Ano ba yung load? Ano ba yung lahat ng mga panggastos mo na kailangan mo, yung uniforme mo, etc. when you go to work? All of that, a person has to figure out when he goes and gets a job, right? And that has to be deducted, you know, because that's not really part of the minimum consumption of his needs. But where is the research going on in the government that's taking account of these needs? They have poverty research. But yung mga very, very basic, like pakibilang lang kung magkano kailangan ng isang tao para ganito. You know, there's other more high-polluting topics being done, but this so simple thing, hindi. But actually, this very simple thing, could have bigger implications, easy to understand, right? Easy for people to get, huh? More dangerous. Please, Maha. So this is also part of the story. Walang trickle down. Yeah? Walang time? No, I'm talking of Maha. Oh, I should be talking to you. Oh, okay. Aya, you are the, sige. The pusher. Nice meeting you, Aya. The blue line here is the gross national income per capita. You see, in 1983, it was 82,000 pesos per capita. That should have been blue. Huh? This one, Jeff, dapat blue yan, in the red. And you have to learn to do this. Look, it did not recover for all this while until about here, until Arab time already. Right. But from then on, it started to go up, reach 192. This is World Bank stuff. Huh? World Bank, so-called, ano tawag nila? They have this term that they use because they want to not just use the cost of living, they want to relate it purchasing power parity, PPP, with the other countries. And there's all that goes in there, but it's not trickling down, right? Obviously. Well, it's also part of the story, but people know that, but this just emphasizes it some more. Please, Aya. Okay? Some basic info. Here are our 4 areas. We always have these 4 areas. The differentials were wider before, but they're not as wide recently. And the South, Mindanao and Visayas, are almost always poorer than the North, Balance of Luzon and NCR. However, hunger is different. In the case of hunger, it's the North that has higher hunger rates than the South. Education, this is the education of the household head, just to show you that, well, it's makes sense. Highest poverty for the non-elementary grads, lowest poverty for the college grads. In due time, we can put in the SHS. But we don't have that so recently. Anyway, that's just a matter of processing of the data. It will get there, right? Get there. The whole trouble is that We don't have enough household heads in the higher things, no? 45% junior high school graduates only. You have 43% up to elementary graduates. How can they possibly have decent wages? Anyway, but you might say that's obvious policy implications. All right. Instead, the investment is going into civil works, airports, yung mga ganon. This just means you should put the investment into the people, into the schools. Eliminate those who have less than elementary education. Dapat maging zero na yon. Give them transportation to their schools. Buses, tricycles, etc. like that. You know, that's a cost, ha? Yung paghahatid sundo. Okay, let's continue. Now, the thresholds. This is national, 15,000 per month, national average. Gap, 7,000 per month. In other words, the gap is not a small amount. It's not as though konti na lang, lampas na. It's very big. It's very big. If we take the NCR by itself, that's 20,000 pesos threshold and 10,000 pesos gap of the poor. Those are the medians. All right. So we just, you know what is the poverty? It's 47%. So that means that for the 23.5%, that's what applies, right? Which is big. Aya, please. Yeah. Okay. Almost. Okay. The thresholds are concave, not linear. The official things are linear because they're using per capita. All right. It's not realistic. I mean, that's it. Go to the next one. There's also food poverty. Same system. Only question is, saan ba ang pagkain ninyo sa card na ito? Mahirap, hindi mahirap. Okay. So it's quality. Okay. Continue. All right. Changes in food poverty. Insignificant, 42%, 30% down, 28% up, slightly down also. Okay. Next. Food poverty, thresholds and gaps, 8,000 per month. I think in NCR, it's 10,000. And then in the gap, and in NCR, I think it's 5,000. We have to do this by area because obviously the cost of living is different from area to area. But anyway, that's in the reports. Huh? These gaps are in the reports. Every report has all the old data too. Okay. Aya, please. Now, hunger. Hunger has no trend. In fact, hunger had a terrible hump from 2004 to 2018. That's from the beginning to the end of the hump. At the top of the hump, it was 19% hunger. Where's that in the history? Why did it happen? Was the inflation like that, Jeff? Maybe. Maybe, because the inflation is your top variable. Okay, we're doing econometrics. This is Jeff. That is me, but of course it's mostly Jeff. Right? Is that the of the inflation target? And of course, this is the pandemic, catastrophic hunger in the pandemic. We did it by telephone, not by face to face. Luckily, this is just pure luck. We had been asking people in our surveys before, for 2 years already, we had been asking them if they would be willing to be interviewed again. And what was their cell phone? Huh? And we accumulated in that way, I don't know, 30,000 survey numbers. And we had, a few thousands for Luzon, for Visayas, and for Mindanao, like that. So we generated random samples that way. But as soon as the pandemic was over, we decided that it's much better to go face to face, right? And this is where, we discovered this that people were stranded because you ask the questions kung nagkaroon ng gutom sa pamilya nila, and the person answered, sino yung pamilya? Kasi nasa Bisaya siya. Yung pamilya ko na nasa nasa Luzon? Ay, ha? Of course, he went yung, but he was sad, hindi siya makauwi. So you see, this is not the result of the infection. It's the result of the overly restrictive policies that were used to prevent people from going around. Huh? We had, the worst reactions. Right? But because we were the most susceptible to fear, we already knew from about 3 types of viruses earlier, Asian flu, swine flu, and etc. All of those, about 3 or 4 types, we surveyed people's reaction to them, and the fear was fantastic. Right? So that's partly our fault. But government took advantage of that, to close the doors, telling you can't go out. Yeah. Continue. Hunger. Now, look, this is really flat, huh? Down changes only 19, up 21%. This is really essentially a flat trend in terms of what's going on to hunger. Unlike poverty, at least may konting pababa. Right? And now here, look in area. NCR is the yellow one. This is the new one, 12.7. It's second worst. But there are so many other yellows here where it was the worst. And I think a lot of this is because it's impossible to grow your own vegetables or fruits in the city. You don't have this way of adding to your sources of food. Aya, please. So put all this together. There's your SRP. That's the red. There's your SR food poverty. That's the blue. There's your total hunger in the 2 portions, moderate and severe. The severe are those who say, this has happened often or always. And the moderate is minsan lang o ilang beses lang nangyari ito in the last 3 months. Right? Now, right now, we're talking about 25 approximately, or is it 27, 102 million households nationally. So 1 point is about 250,000 households. Right? Aya, please. Okay. SRP is always higher in rural. SRP is inversely related to education. The threshold is concave to household size, which is realistic. No? I mean, you don't need a double house when you have a double family. Right? At any point in time, hunger is always higher among the poor and the non-poor and among the food poor. But, and this is the interesting thing, hunger rates of the poor and the non-poor fluctuate. So, see, there's also hunger among the non-poor. You know that? You have data about that? It's only SW that gives you data about the hunger of the poor and the hunger of the non-poor. Because they're included in the same survey. Oh, they're included in the same survey. So you can group them and find out about it, no? And it can happen that you have people who are saying they're poor, but they're not hungry now like they were before. Diba? Because the coefficient isn't fixed, you know. It siyempre depends on the circumstances, right? Oh, mahirap pa rin sila. Pero medyo mas mura ang mga pagkain ngayon, no? Something so. Hindi sila kasing gutom na kagaya noon, no? Okay. And it's just realistic. Why don't we take their word for it? Ah, isa pa yon. We have to analyze that. Kulang kami sa analysts, ha? We're looking for students who would like to do that. We have a question which asks if they had assistance by type and from whom. It's very simple, no? So one question is anong klase, and it could be food, could be money, could be loans, it could be a job, it could be schooling. You know? And then the other question is sanggaling. Is it your friends or your relatives? Is it from the church? Is it from the government? Is it from a business? Is it from a non-profit organization? Simple lang. But I bet you, if we only could analyze that, then we could learn more, more about it. I don't have time to look at all of that. And this staff is so many other things to do. It can't be, continually doing that. You provide us with students who can do that for us.
If it's a student.
Yes.
that can actually-
Yes. This is student. That's right. That's right. That's how research gets done, with student power. Yeah. I have been noticing, just offhand, that the proportion of ayuda from the government has gone up compared to years ago. When it was kind of yung church, I am disappointed, baba. Actually, the usual big one is your friends or your relatives. Ang tutulong-tulong. And that deserves to be part of part of the research also. Okay. So anyway, as I say, lastly, that's why sometimes the hunger and the poverty can move time-wise in opposite directions. Like in the last quarter, essentially the poverty was stable from the third quarter to the fourth quarter. But the hunger went up from the third quarter to the fourth quarter. Okay. Now, what economists that you know remember that or know that? Itong mga taga-NEDA. Ay, because hindi nila dinidibdib. On the other hand, they can remember what happened to the banks. Kung kailan naipit ang mga loans, yung mga ganon, what happened to the discount rate, yung mga ganon. Ay, pang mga mayayaman lang yun. You see, that's not the general Filipino people. Do I have anything more to say? What is it? The last one. This is actually what Jeff has found out so far. Okay. Instead of putting the equation, Jeff, I just put your words para madaling. Okay. Number one, top variable food inflation rate. Okay. So you have sounds like an elasticity, 0.7 elasticity of poverty to inflation. And the second one is the unemployment. But you mean they're actually the the official unemployment rate, okay? Which is idleness, no? You know how to be unemployed? You have to be completely idle because once you work for 1 hour for pay, employed ka na eh. Buti na lang they have the underemployment rate, but they don't know how to add it up together. I mean, they know how, but they don't do it. because you have to put the same denominator. No? The underemployment should not be as a proportion of the employed. It should be as a proportion of the labor force, so that you can add them up, both as a fraction of the labor force. Now, we do that in our joblessness reports, and they track very well. They track very well together with the government data. That's why I'm very, very confident. Gawin nyo rin. Magkakapare-pareho yan. It's the best way to show, what science can do. Competition, and that's, by the way, also economists, free marketers talking there. Free competition in research also, so that the truth will come out. Okay? And the lesson that we already knew 50 years ago is that economic growth is not the way to improve, the well-being of the Filipino people. Should be teaching that in this economics department, I think I'm done there. Yeah. Okay. That's a motto. Huh? Statistics for advocacy. Okay, not because we can feed statistics to the poor, but there are those, who might be induced to do it, donate, and etc. etc. No, see, we have worked this out. Huh? First of all, open the eyes of the people. Secondly, attack their conscience about it. And then thirdly, then here's the data. Mag-analyze na kayo. Find out what the result should be. Okay? That's how we work. Okay? That's SW. Tama.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mahar, for that enlightening and informative presentation as always. Okay, so now we go to the Q&A. Ay, pwedeng pabukas yung ating ilaw. So, okay. So we have a question here on site. Kala, please.
Like to ask about your survey technique. How do you construct your sample frame? What's the size of your sample?
Yeah.
What kind of response rate do you get? Do you recruit?
One at a time, so that I won't forget. Okay. The size of the sample is 1,200. 400 is 4 areas. So each of those is done separately, and then you add it up, right? Okay. I guess the frame is just the geographical list of barangays in the country, because we just draw geographically. We draw sample points geographically, and we do it at the rate of 5 respondents per point, which is high quality. Huh? That means, yeah. Or else, well, that is if it's rural. If it's urban, then it would be an electoral precinct. That's quite small. We have a list of all the electoral precincts in the country. All right? The one from the Comelec. Yes. Then we use random walk techniques, which have been used in consumer research forever. That says that, okay, you got to have starting points. So we have maybe 4 or 5 alternative starting points, and you choose one at random. The office chooses it at random and assigns it to this field person. And what could this be? Well, one could be the church. One could be the barangay captain's house. One could be a school, and something will be something else. But so there will be a starting point. Okay, that's a sure random starting point. Okay. Then there is a walking procedure. You say, you walk. You face in a particular way. You turn you to the right. Okay, that's left justified. There's right justified, or there could be left, but as long as you keep on doing it, right? And you and then you're given your first gap, like maybe go 6 or 8, skip 6 or 8 homes, residences, right? But after that, then you have a normal interval, like maybe 3. Okay, so the starting point is 6, and then you have every 3 until you reach your quota, right? So that means that for 300 in Visayas, you need 60 points in the entire Visayas. We mapped that out, and we can show you. Here they are, all mixed up, all over the place. Right? Then, yeah. Then within the household, you've got to list down all the names of the people. Right? You well, you figure out who's the household head. They'll tell you. But your normal respondent is an adult, and the adult is picked up by something called a Kish grid. A Kish grid is a matrix of where the rows are the individuals in the whole household, and then the columns are a series of random numbers, a series of numbers, all right? And well, it's look, let's put it this way: if there are 4 people in the household, then there are only 4 people to choose from, all right? And you will have these numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 randomized going across the width of the table, and you just you'll be given a number on the left, and then you just figure out which person you should interview. It's like, in effect, it's like saying this: if you have 4 possibilities, it's like we're giving you a die from 1 to 4, and then and or a set of cards from 1 to 4, and then you just at random shuffle them and see what number you get: 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's effectively like that, except it removes it from the hands of the interviewer. The interviewer does not have any choice anymore. It's marked on the questionnaire, and the interviewer has to follow that. And then maybe a day or a few days later, somebody will follow up and check to see whether the interviewer did that. All right. So that's the they have a term for that, checkup rule or something like that. Okay. And then there was another thing. The they have all these rules, for what happens. Nobody. Sometimes it's just locked. The doors is just locked. Nobody's there. All right. Okay. So you go to the next one, right? And they have callbacks, specified number before you give up. Right? It usually takes maybe 3 days, because you might have to come back again. You see, if you find out that you should interview person number 2, but that the person number 2 is in school, you got to come back and interview that person another time. So typically the interviews are done from, say, Friday to Monday. So you've got some holidays and you've got some work days in there. Essentially, this is sampling in the field using commercial market research techniques, which makes sure that the one that you're going to interview is there. If you use a pre-given list and try to draw from there, then you're going to find a lot of problems in that list. You're going to find a lot of fakes. Okay? Some people had the nerve to die You're not there anymore. Like that. It's always better to sample right in the field from people you know are there, and go do it that way. All right, and that's where we learn so much from the market researchers who do the work. The academics, on the other hand, are you know more demanding, take much time, very expensive, and like that. But we think it's work, so it's worth it.
Right. Any other question from the audience on site or on Zoom? Do you have any question from our Zoom audience? Anybody? You can virtually raise your hand or type in your question in the chat box. Yeah, we have right now 54, but at one point during the middle of the seminar, we have about 77 online participants, and we also have. So any question from the students? Is your any question?
I'd like to ask a question if it's okay.
Of course.
So, what actually is the main motivation behind using the words poor and non-poor as opposed to poor versus rich? So, like, how do you want the respondents to think by presenting those?
We want to measure poverty.
But why not the opposite?
Well, if you want to measure well, that's another matter. You will do that also. I have a very well-cited paper called, subjective poverty and affluence. That's also doable. Where the affluence point is only about 3 times the poverty threshold. In other words, if people are here, say 20,000 poverty threshold, you ask it, do we experimented with it, and 60,000 pesos per month is already mayan. Just use the term mayan. But it depends on what word you would use. Mahirap, mayaman. So liquidity is very important. You've got to choose the word. Don't choose too many words. You'll get worse if you choose so many words. Choose few, stick to them. There are people who do that, I think. Comfortable. Comfortable is a word that the Opus Dei people like to use, making their lines. I mean, a comfort line.
Please use the mic.
A comfort line, yeah, because I think they're not trying to measure poverty. They're trying to measure, what is a decent wage to give to certain people, and that's a good objective also in itself. But we're trying to be very strict about what's poverty, right? And we have picked what we think is the least poor of all the poverty words. Para border talaga. Walang dukha, walang ano ba yung mga ba? Kapos. Ha? Marami yun. Marami yun. See? But if there was a milder word than mahirap, we would use it. Okay? Pero parang yan la. And I don't mind being coached by somebody in linguistics who would really say, alam mo, ang meron mas mabuti may ganito. No? Our marketing guru, Ned Roberto, likes kapos, for example. Okay, but at the same time, no? Pag meron kang gusto, uulit-ulitin mo. Hindi parang one time, tapos forever na yan. You know?
Questions in the chat.
Okay, what are they?
Two questions from Kyla. Kyla, would you like to ask your question? I can read them. So good afternoon. How do you prevent tampering of data to report through statistics? That's one question. And then the other one, related question
Tampering.
from Wilma Salas. It seems not everyone are aware of the World Bank report about the global food security problem. How, we would like to ask, how could the general public be made aware the pending global food security problem? So first,
I can't. Let's look one question at a time. Okay. Okay. Yung tampering of the data, well, syempre, you have to have your internal controls, right? As I said, you have somebody who follows up to be sure that that the interviewer really, did the proper thing and all of that, you know. And you know, it's all submitted, di ba? Walang ano, forever na yan, ha? Forever na yon. This kinds of stuff. And you have to be very strict in honesty, If one dishonesty, you're out. Strike one. Wala na. It's like kung maglalaro ka ng baraha, magdaya ka na minsan, hindi ka naman papalaruin. Ganun lang. Okay? That's just a matter of honesty. Okay, what's the second question then?
was related to pending global food security problems. So it seems that
Global food security. Well, these data are informing the world about the hunger, the moderate hunger, and the severe hunger in 4 areas of the Philippines. It can also be broken down if we try to, let's say by family size. I mean, we can analyze these things, if we want to do more. We could do it by religion, because we ask about religion. I mean, there are those little things that could be done if there would be analysts who would look into it. No? Actually, there's a lot of politics there. I mean, there's a lot of governance. So, since we know what people think about their leaders, there could be analysis. I don't know if it would be significant vis-a-vis a certain leader. But who wants to do that? I mean, there probably are people who want to do that. But those who want to do that, come and do it. All right? There's raw data. Want to analyze? Right? Maybe you use up your time, which is your investment, your sweat equity in the topic. Right? Let's put it this way, We try to gather whatever data we can, and then we keep it. And if other people would like to learn what's there and analyze it some more, fine. Sige. But don't just suggest that we analyze it in a particular way. Wala na kaming tao eh. No? Come and join in. That's the way to do it. You get your hands dirty like that. You can do that. I mean, then you don't have to pay for any new data. Now, if you want a specific question, if you want comfort, sinong mayaman, then we can ask a new question for you. And syempre, may gastos na. We will charge already for that. Right? No?
one last question. Unless there's a burning question on site. Okay, one last question. This is a phone-in question for somebody who would like to remain anonymous.
Sure.
How do you protect the data from a respondent that is under-reporting or over-reporting? Do you triangulate the response or take the response as it is?
Mostly we take it as it is. If we don't have a feeling that this person is trying to deceive you, right? Interviewers are smart people naman eh, no? They're trained to be friendly, agreeable, non-threatening, di ba? The encounter of respondent and interviewer is very, very important, no? It requires these interviewers to go to all kinds of places. You have to admire their guts and their health, huh? To go to all wherever they're supposed to go. And they're all girls pa. Because men are threatening per se. Baka hindi papasukin yan, no? So that's traditional. You go to the survey research companies, you will find 99% girls talaga, 99%. And huh? Well, not too pleasing, not distracting already. Okay? Wag masyado maganda kasi baka hindi na alam ng kung anong sasabihin niya. Okay? But some very basic things. For example, maybe they need to have dental work done kasi kung bungi-bungi baka ma-distract yun. All right? Okay? Hindi naman kailangan makintab, but yung it doesn't hurt the work. Huh? Like that. Okay? And they're proud of where they can go, They'll say, when they take pictures, ay, ito na naman, magbabangka na naman kami para pupunta kung saan-saan. Yeah.
I think we're almost coming to the close of this seminar. But before we end, I'd like to invite first, of course, our audience on Zoom to have a photo opportunity with our speaker and then the on-site. So I'd like to invite everyone to open their camera, please, those who are on Zoom, so that the on-site participant can also see you. So while you are opening your camera and fixing your hair, I'd like to invite everyone, okay, to our next seminar. So it will be on Feb 16. Our speaker is Dr. Gonzalo Varela, lead economist from the World Bank. He will be sharing his research on export promotion and industrial policy, the impact of export subsidies in Pakistan. And of course, for those of you who would like to get materials from the previous seminar, including this one, please visit our website and also our YouTube channel. So, Dr. Mahar Mangahas kindly agreed for the video to stay in our YouTube channel.
Okay ba yan, Jeff? Okay ba yan? Huh?
And for those who would like to get a certificate of participation in the seminar, you may do so, but you need to fill out the form using the link that Aya is now sending via the chat box. So there's only a limited time where you can request, so request now. And of course, every time our seminar is being supported by our very excellent graduate assistant. So I am here, we have Rainier also, and we have our IT support, si Rodel and also si Rico, and they have their entire team supporting us. So okay, so first, we have the photo session with our Zoom participants. Please open your camera. So, Mahar, smile. Dito ka tingin.
Okay, please open your video.
How about the ones attending here?
Okay, I'm taking the picture. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
For the Zoom participants, we have a very good merienda. So next time, please come to Ateneo. Okay? Bye. We have a photo on site. Bye-bye. Thank you for attending.